Natalie, how are you?
I'm good, Mach. How are you?
No, welcome to Spark.N.Stride.
Thank you for having me.
I have been listening to your music for about 2 weeks. Exhale. My favorite.
Oh my God.
My absolute favorite. I'm
glad. I'm glad. That's awesome. That's literally my debut single and what kind of got me started on this journey of music and the Natalie Farrell thing. And man, there's a whole story behind that actually. I was definitely, at the time I was actually doing open mics and gigging with an old coworker actually out in Trenton. And I migrated over to the Jersey Shore, started in the Highlands, and I went to an open mic at this place called the Chubby Pickle. And I went by myself. I brought my guitar. I said, I'm just going to go out on a whim and see what happens. And I met my now guitar player, Matt Fernicola, there. And he said, do you want to improv? Do you want to just jump up and start singing something? And I had never done that before. And part of me was like, absolutely not. Thank you, though. And the other part of me was, this is like, I like this, experimental things like that. Like it kind of gets something going in my head when it comes to music. And I was very like, let's do it. Let's try it and see what happens. And long story short, Exhale came out of that improv, and I voice memoed almost everything. Every open mic I went to, any performance live, I always voice memoed, and I brought it home. And I rearranged a couple of lyrics here and there. And before I knew it, it was pretty much the same exact song. The same night I met my guitar player, we just improv'd it and then went into the studio and recorded it.
Wow.
And that's it.
This episode of Spark.N.Stride is proudly brought to you by Amped Fitness, the ultimate destination for community-driven fitness, inspiration, and a healthier lifestyle. At Amped, there are no contracts or sign-up fees, just a commitment to your well-being. Join Amped in Brielle and Belmar, New Jersey, and discover a supportive fitness community like no other. Use promo code SPARK50 and receive a jaw-dropping 50% off your first 6 months at Amped Fitness. Don't miss this chance to spark your fitness revolution. Tune in and power up Spark.N.Stride. Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
So check this out. So I have this thing that I do, and when I'm like, thing with like rappers, singers, the whole thing, I always wonder to myself, right? Like, number one, like how do they come up with the idea for whatever it is, the lyric, the song, the rap song, whatever it is.
I gotcha.
So I guess aside from that, I'm always interested in knowing, when did someone realize, or where did the spark or the realization that, hey, I can do this?
Oh my gosh. Since I was a kid.
Really?
I was like a baby.
Tell me about that.
Oh man. I don't know. Maybe I was about 3 years old. I have a sister who's, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a sister, she's 4 years older than me. And, my parents put her in like dance lessons and beauty pageants and stuff like that. And, I don't know, I was always admiring that and always thinking like I could do that. And for me, the dancing was really what kind of started it all out. I was just always in the back dancing, watching all the other students dance and do ballet and all this stuff. And I was like, I could do this. I really want to do this. And then before I knew it, I was watching the movie Selena, actually. I was maybe 4 or 5. And I remember J-Lo obviously playing Selena's role, and I loved everything about J-Lo at that time already. And just the feeling of her getting on stage in the beginning when she's going on like the chariot with the horse and everything, and just feeling the rumble of the audience, and just that feeling alone kind of like really resonated with me at such a young age. And I said, this is something I really want to do. Like, this is like, I want to be on the big stage. I want to hear my voice. I want to hear people react to like what I have to say. I want them to be influenced by what I'm singing and saying. And I don't know, it was something in me since day one that said like, I can do this. I'm capable of doing this. I know I could do this. And pretty much from when I was really young until I was about 7 years old, then moved to New Jersey, originally from Brooklyn. But before that, every summer we'd be at like the community pool, and I always try to put on a show for people and try to like say I could sing, I could do this. But when you're that small of a child, it doesn't really come off the same way.
Yeah.
And then, by the time I was 7 years old and I moved to New Jersey, I think I was feeling a little uneasy from moving away from my family, because we all grew up like in the same apartment complex and everything, and starting this suburban life. And I turned to singing more and dancing more. So much so that I made my mom get me like mirrored closet doors so I could practice dancing and singing and stuff. And I think they started to notice how serious I was taking it. And then we started doing church talent shows. I picked up the guitar at age 13 and the ukulele. Wow. And then by the time I was in high school, I was in like 4 or 5 different choir ensembles. I graduated with a plaque for my senior award and got some scholarship money out of the choir classes. And I went on I got my associates in like liberal arts, but I did the option with music. So I studied music while I was even in college. And the rest is history from there. So, but since day one, yes.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna start peeling that onion back a little bit.
I'm sure.
So how did you learn how to write music? Because that's different, right?
Yeah.
Like one thing is being inspired. Hey, I can do this.
Of course.
Dancing in front of the mirrored closet doors. Yeah. It's another thing, like putting pen to paper.
Yeah, definitely.
Expressing yourself that way. I'm not very familiar with how to write music.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've taken all these classes and I feel guilty saying it, but I'm still trying to figure it out.
Okay.
Because I'm very self-taught at the end of the day. I think it started really with like poetry writing when I was younger. And then it just turned into wanting to make it lyrics and kind of put an idea of the sound behind it, but I couldn't figure it out, which is why I picked up the guitar. But even so, I picked up the guitar or the ukulele and I only learned maybe like the easy chords, like E chord or the C chord and G chord and all this stuff. And thanks to YouTube at the time, I went on and started finding different musicians online and just took different sounds and kind of incorporated it into my own, at least starting out. I mean, the songs I wrote when I was 13, I don't sing and play now.
Right, yeah.
So it was just like an easy start kind of thing. It's easier when I have my guitar player in my band with me. For the most part, they create the music, or up until my most recent EP, actually, they created the music and I created the lyrics and what's the word I'm looking for? The melody.
The melody, okay.
Yes, and then we'd push everything together. We'd go into a studio. I'd tell them like where I want more harmonies or how I want this to sound, and I would kind of like navigate everything, and then we'd finalize it together, and then that would be us writing a song pretty much. In this case, with my latest EP, I think it was a lot of working with a different producer this time, breaking that down, sending different songs of what I'd want it to be heavily influenced by, the concepts of the songs and stuff, and then sitting in the studio, watching him create and produce in front of me, and then we kind of start putting the song and the lyrics and the melodies together at that point. So there's so many different ways to do it, really.
I'm so intrigued and I'm so envious.
Oh my God.
Because I wish I could do that. Like, I wish I could play an instrument.
I think you can.
I wish. I'm so intrigued, right? Because I come from a family of musicians, and my family grew up in Puerto Rico, humble beginnings. Everyone in my family, like my mother's brothers and sisters, they're all guitar players and singers. So amazing. And I grew up with this harmony and this energy in the home. The holidays were the most beautiful times that I remember, no matter how poor we were, because we were poor. Yeah. But, you know, a pot of rice, some red beans. Yeah. Some roasted chicken in the oven, and a lot of guitar playing, a lot of Bacardi.
Yes.
Some dominoes.
Amazing.
And we grew up in Brooklyn too. We grew up in Williamsburg, the old Williamsburg, not the new Williamsburg.
Gotcha.
The old one. But
I'm from Bensonhurst.
Okay, yeah. I'm very familiar.
Yeah.
But at my grandmother's house, we would stay up to like 6 a.m. So it was just an all-out guitar playing session.
I love it.
You know, banjo, just the whole thing, right? And I just always, for some reason, I just couldn't get it. I couldn't figure out. It just didn't. it wasn't something that came natural to me.
Okay.
But my mom was one of the better guitar players in the family. They're all good.
Yeah.
But my mom was it was just amazing to watch her play, and it would just take her to places that I was just like, man, like I want to go there. You know?
I know.
Like,
I get what you mean.
Like, take me.
Was she self-taught or?
Self-taught.
Okay.
Self-taught.
I gotcha. So it's still in you. You got something in you.
Oh, it's in me. Oh, it's in me. I have such a passion for music, you know? But yeah, I just to see her in her comfort zone and knowing what she was good at. And she was good at playing a Latin guitar, a Spanish guitar, you know, and she had this beautiful voice. She's passed away, but
she's definitely left a legacy for sure. Absolutely. And I'm sure everything that you're doing now is what impacts, you know.
Yeah.
So in your way, that's kind of what she's, in my opinion, I think showing you that even though it's not the guitar, it's what you've created, and it probably gave her the same feeling while playing the guitar that this gives you that feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
So, and that makes it even more unique, if you ask me.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Course.
Thank you. But yeah, I just, you know, I always think about like all these artists and these classic songs that we all know. And I'm sure we could kind of get into it a little bit, but just how did that magic happen in the studio with the producer, right? Like I've always thought to myself, like, think of any classic song that comes to your mind.
Yeah.
I always think to myself, like, who was in the room when that happened?
Of course. Yeah. You always wonder, like, what created that sound at that moment, and what made it what it is today. It had to be something going on in that studio for sure. I mean, there's some songs that I've written in the past, I don't think nearly as close as like the Marvelettes from, you know, Motown, or the Beatles, like all of these like legendary, iconic musicians from our past that have, you know, influenced us to that point. But like there's still little moments for me where I'm like, wow, I think had things not gone the way it did in that studio session, I don't think we would have had what we have now. And you're right, it's very intriguing to kind of think about that, because sometimes that will influence, at least in my opinion, the musician themselves. Well, this artist heavily influenced me. What were they going through when they went to the studio? What impacted them? What made their emotions kind of arise and put all of that energy into that recording? And it's just, there's a lot to think about when it comes to the studio recording aspect, for sure. 150%.
Yeah. Like, Natalie, like, I'm not trying to like kiss your ass. Like, you're good.
Thank
you're
you.
good. Like, I love your
that.
music. I'm like,
Thank
wow.
you.
Like, and I've been like reaching out to people. I'm like, hey, do you know about this? And they're like, yeah. Like, where have you been? I'm like, dude, like,
well, thank you.
Like, why am I getting put onto this like later on? You know, like, because I know you've been working at this for how long now?
Ooh, I would say about 7 or 8 years now. Yeah.
Phenomenal, dude.
Yeah, I'm trying and counting. It's not ending.
No, phenomenal. You know what I mean? But Natalie, like, how does a young girl who's like interested in maybe following your path, right? Where does the part where you're interested, you have this passion, you're learning how to write, how do you bridge the gap to actually getting into a studio?
Definitely. So I think personally for me, it took the networking aspect, and in this case, meeting my guitar player, Matt Fernicola, was really, really helpful. Matt is an all-around outspoken guy. He has met so many different faces of the local music industry, at least. And Matt's really kind of inspired me in that aspect to continue to write music since we wrote Exhale together. So we started recording at Matt's home recording studio. And from there, down the road, I met my now bass player / husband, Lou Panico.
Wow.
And,
okay. I didn't know he was your husband.
Yeah.
Your bass, Lou's your husband.
Uh-huh.
How did I not piece that together?
Yeah. We try to keep it separate.
You're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I like we're both musicians. We're both very type A dominant personalities. And I think it's healthiest if we keep things separate.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't make sense because he plays in my band, but it's a strict, like, this is my thing. This is what we're gonna do, and vice versa with his situation. But yes,
and he has no problems falling in line.
I mean, in the beginning, of course, there's always a here or there, but no, he's great. He's very supportive. He's very helpful. When asked, he gives great ideas and opinions.
Yeah.
And no, overall, a really great guy. But it just adds to the dynamic of the band. I mean, there's me, Matt Fernicola, and now my husband, Lou Panico. And again, we're all very, very type A personalities. And some people say that might be too many cooks in the kitchen. And from time to time it is. But I think at the same time, it's that strong chemistry that really brings so much to the table, that we all have different ideas. It feels nice that in my particular project, especially for what was called such a male-dominated industry for so long, like now I have a band where I am the front lead woman, and I do get to make the calls, and I do get to really put out there what I want heard and the feeling I want to kind of transcribe onto the listener and really hit home, if that makes sense. But I'm going a little bit off track here as far as getting into the studio. I mean, there's so many different aspects in so many different ways. It just so happened to work out for me that I met my now band members who were already 10 steps ahead of me.
Wow,
but it could be as easy as going to your local music shop and meeting people there. There's always like cork boards where you could find recording sessions or go and get it professionally recorded. You could learn about recording and then, try to look into building your own home recording studio. There's so many different routes that you could actually take. I just think I lucked out when it came to my experience in particular.
Wow. On your new EP, what's your favorite song?
On my new EP mantra.
How'd you come up with that name, by the way?
Oh man, I've been literally like, I don't know what happened over the last few years, pandemic or not. I've just really gone into this like spiritual awakening, I guess you could say. And I've been doing a lot of meditating every morning affirmations, and most specifically, I use mantras when I meditate, and mantras when I'm doing my early morning journal writing. And it got to a point where it was really, really like signifying like what I was going through in my life and what I was manifesting and what I was feeling. And I would follow, that mantra would follow me throughout the day. I would like have it stuck in my head. And at that point, the single off of the EP also called Mantra was the first song I started recording. And me and my producer, Russell Hayden, decided that we wanted this concept to be all about like, this is my mantra. I could do what I can. I could do whatever I want. I could do it how I do it. I'm that boss babe. I'm that boss bitch. I could create the life that I'm creating now, and it's only going to get better from here. And like, nobody's going to put me down on that. And yeah, mantra just kind of, I guess, became the EP name after that. It started with that concept. Thank you so much. And
we're just getting started now,
and
by the way.
Well, that's great. But yeah, it just kind of, it worked its way from there. And I'm a I'm a person with anxiety. So I think going into meditating and doing the mantras and doing yoga and going for walks and stuff really helped that anxiety. And I wanted that to kind of be like on the back end, a significance for me to kind of remember. And seeing the word mantra just kind of symbolizes the strength that I have grown and continue to grow during this time period for myself.
When did you realize that you had anxiety?
So I was actually diagnosed with moderate depression, severe anxiety when I was 19, 20 years old. And then I didn't take it as seriously back then as I do now. Although ironically, I think I had more therapy back then and all that stuff. Whereas now the meditating and everything that I'm doing now is kind of my form of therapy. I think it felt real again. I want to say coming out of the pandemic and learning to socialize with others again and be on stage again and actually during the pandemic in 2020, I actually also lost my voice. Like physically, I couldn't speak or sing. And I think that started to build on my anxiety again, aside from not really talking to people the way we normally do.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to a point where I went to an ears, nose, throat doctor. They said, you have muscle tension dysphonia, which is pretty much the vocal cords and the muscles around your vocal box get very, very tight.
Mm-hmm. And
it gets to a point where it's very difficult to speak or sing without feeling like you're trying to push as hard as you can. And I think in the back of my head, the anxiety started to grow bigger and bigger of, is this a permanent thing? Is this a moment of, am I going to have to give up music? Am I going to have to give up singing? Am I going to be able to speak the same? There were moments where the only way I could actually talk to you was if I was talking like this, because it would help the vocal box in some sort of weird way, but it was actually harming me more, according to my speech pathologist. I ended up doing speech therapy for what was supposed to be 6 months for only 4 months. I was discharged after 4 months. I released a single called Keep Me Close at the end of that year, which strongly signified everything that I had gone through, and how I'm still keeping myself close and I'm never going to give up on myself. And I think that helped me power through my anxiety, but still sticks with me because it's not fully gone away for the rest of it. I have to deal with it for the rest of my life. There's still vocal exercises I have to do from time to time. Sometimes I'll drink too much alcohol and it'll dry out, or it'll kind of enhance it. I mean, wine or whatever, or, you know.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, anything acidic, or it could really trigger it sometimes.
Wow.
Yes. So I think that's why I like yoga and stretching and working like the muscles and stuff that I do every day. Even during meditation, I'll like move my head around and stretch a certain way. The stretching helps. But getting back to what you said, I think that started the anxiety and kind of spiraled its way into, what are people going to think of me and all this other stuff, which I'm still working on at this point. I'm still human. I mean, I'm still going to feel like there's eyes on me sometimes, especially as a performer and a singer. And I'm trying to work on that now, to realize, well, what is like inner mirror work? What is making you feel that way? Why is it making you feel that way? Is it something that you've inserted into your own mind, or is it something that is not your problem and is somebody else's own insecurity that is now being reflected onto you? So I think about these things all the time, but I still deal with anxiety on a day-to-day basis, for sure.
Wow.
But I'm okay with it. I think that makes me who I am, and I think that helps me continue to grow, not only as an artist or a musician, but as a person too. To pretty much answer your question, Mach, Rely on Me is my favorite song off of the EP Mantra. I think it's hard to explain because a lot of people will see it as a love song and me being there for somebody, my partner who might have fallen in some sort of way emotionally, when it's really a letter from my future self to my past self. And I think it really shows and sets an example for those who for so long kind of felt bad or guilty about their past selves, or didn't like who their past selves were. And I think I felt like that for the longest time. And I think I needed to take a moment, actually thanks to my producer, Russell Hayden. He said, if you were to write a letter to your past self and really be there for her, what would you say? And that song was pretty much the letter. And that really hits home with me. And I really, really hope that it hits home for other people too, feeling the same exact way about how they could be feeling for themselves, whether it's now or the past, or for whatever experience they may be going through.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you write that like in the studio, or did you write that like at home?
So me and my producer, Russell Hayden, actually wrote the song together. He kickstarted it for me. We talked about the concept, and I told him, that this would be a great concept. And he started, I believe, verse 1, and we kind of just went back and forth. And then by the end of it, because it was actually the last song we recorded before we submitted the EP for distribution, at this point, he was on to his next project, and I was trying to finalize this and get all of the content going for the EP. So I just recorded at my home recording studio, sent it over to him. He finalized the edits, and that was pretty much it.
Oh, it's such a beautiful song.
Okay, but the question is, what is your favorite song off of the EP?
There's a few. I don't want to piggyback off of what you just said, but Mantra is what's been like ringing in my ear. If that's
awesome.
Like, I hope no one takes offense to that.
No, I gotcha.
I just don't know. You got to be careful. Like, they'll blow you up in the comments.
Nope,
like, what does he mean by that? Ringing in the ear. I have tendinitis or whatever. But in any case, it's Mantra. What's super cool too, Natalie, is the imagery. The imagery of like your videos. I'm like, dude, like that's all. Like, who like is how involved are you in the imagery of your music?
So this was unique because I had an image in my head of the color palettes that I really wanted, and just the overall like story, dreamy like feeling, like when you're listening to the song. Or
Dude,
all the songs.
It's cool as hell. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, definitely. It was great because we did a music video for the single off of the EP, Mantra. And there's a music video out now on YouTube, and all of the color palettes in this place perfectly it was just a great example of everything that was in my head. And what I found ironic was, obviously I went on like Peerspace and I tried looking for locations. Me and my producer, Russell Hayden, were going through looking at locations together. And I found this particular place just to find out that I had actually been following this girl on Instagram for years, like maybe almost 3 or 4 years now. And I saw her create this space. Like, she built this space from the ground up. And I think her image for so long just became that like mantra look and theme for me, that when I actually found it on Peerspace, I was like, this is a sign. Like,
yeah,
I have been following this girl in a non-creepy way. But like seeing her create this masterpiece of just beautiful colors and dynamic and femininity and power, and I loved everything about it, that I was like, I need to do this. I definitely need to go forward with it. I sent it to my producer, Russell, and he said, let's do it. And Russell Hayden also produced and directed the music video. So I think he kind of put his own, I gave him some ideas for the color palettes and everything, and he put his own twist into it as well and kept it very simplified, which I really liked also. So I think really the girl that I've been following has really influenced me as far as the color palette goes. I believe her Instagram handle is Dreamloft Studios, and her name is Rachel Martino. She's a fantastic home decor designer, and this just gave, again, like boss bitch, femininity, powerhouse, even Barbie vibes. Like, it was amazing.
And
Loved
she's
it.
local? She's local to New Jersey?
She's in the New York area.
Okay.
I want to say Kings County, Brooklyn area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
so she's but I mean, honestly, the drive was pretty easy for me coming from Central Jersey, Jersey Shore, whatever you want to explain it. But what about you? What about this setup that we're sitting in right now? You need to tell me about it.
Thank you. So this used to be my master bedroom before we did the addition to my home. And the color scheme for Spark.N.Stride, if you notice, like the colors in here are the colors that you would see when a spark is ignited.
I like that.
Right. So it's like the off gray tone, the orangey kind of color or whatever, right?
Definitely. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah. So and again, it comes from the idea of being sparked or staying sparked, right? Mm-hmm. So it's funny, right? Because like, how do you stay sparked? Because spark is just it's a flash, it's a one-time thing. Exactly. But then it's the flame that takes over, right?
Of course.
So the spark is to continuously stay motivated and to continuously stay thinking.
Gotcha.
Stride is, how do you take those ideas, those goals, and how do you put that forward? How do you put that in motion? A lot of times we'll come up with ideas, we'll come up with something, and I've shared this many times on the podcast, but you tend to tell the person or the people closest to you, and unfortunately, sometimes they just don't see it. Yeah. And your spark can get dimmed and go out, right? Absolutely. So the idea is to stay sparked.
I like that.
Stay motivated, stay thinking.
That's really inspiring. I love that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's how this came to me. And this came to me, as cliche as it may sound, it came to me in a dream. You know, I grew up in Brooklyn. The Notorious B.I.G. was a big influence to me. Puff Daddy, Brother Love, Diddy, what he did with Bad Boy in the mid-90s. Mm-hmm. Like, because I grew up seeing this. I grew up as a young kid picking up the Source magazine, picking up the XXL. Yeah. And I just didn't, you know, I was young at the time. I was like in my teens. I was maybe like 14, 15 years old when this stuff is going on. Yeah. And I just remember always thinking to myself, like, I seen people of color being successful in a space that they created. And that's always stayed with me. For sure. And I've always dreamt and strived to have that for myself. Yeah. That's powerful. Thank you. And it's Spark.N.Stride. Yeah. And there's a lot of things that I have that I envision for Spark.N.Stride. Definitely. But ultimately, whatever it is that I'm able to accomplish, I want to give back to the next generation, to the upcoming generation of creator. Definitely. The next generation of podcaster, the next generation of singers, musicians, authors, motivators. Absolutely. Whatever's going to come after us, I want to be able to say that I had a part in that. Yeah. You left a legacy in some sort of way. Yes. I could totally relate to that. Yes. It's and I feel like we have a lot in common too. I mean, we're both Puerto Rican. Yep. We're both from Brooklyn. Yes, ma'am. I grew up with J-Lo and P. Diddy, Ashanti, like that whole kind of vibe too. And even my mom, growing up, has always instilled in me, you know, you show power because you're Puerto Rican, you know, like there is a different type of, not to say that obviously like there's so many different types of cultures and race, ethnicities, all this stuff. It just growing up in that home, like you said, filled with lots of music and a lot of family members that put a spark in you maybe. Yes. It's very, you can't help but think like with that kind of influence, you want to leave a legacy, you know? Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with that. I think I've said since day one, I always like, I don't know what I'm doing with this music thing right now. I just know that hopefully one day I could leave a legacy for the next generation and society to kind of grow and be impacted by whatever I'm capable of doing in this time frame. I feel like you're in my head because one of the things I wanted to ask you is, how do you view your legacy in music? And right, like, and you're kind of like, you're pretty much answering it, like right there, right? Definitely. So. I mean, I feel like I'm still trying to figure it out, but the more I grow, the more I start to understand it. I mean, I think it's a huge thing now, especially these days. It's healthier now that we're all talking about mental health and stuff. And I think 100%. You could relate with me on the factor of that, like, we should be talking about this more, and that this is a wellness thing that rather than something to look down upon. And if I could put the two together, music and wellness, or some sort of way to have the next generation feel like, wow, my mental health feels so much stronger and healthier from listening to this music. And I'm sure there's other artists who could do the same thing. It's going to come down to, well, what can you do differently, Natalie? And I think that's what I'm still trying to figure out now. But I'd like that to be a role in my legacy. Sure. I think I'd like to do so many different things. I mean, there's like, I tell my husband all the time, I love music, but I also would love to like do charity work for like animals and like all this other stuff. Sure. Like, what can I do to combine all of that to leave a legacy? And I'm still trying to figure that out because I don't know, my personality is all over the place and just wants to do 10 million things at once, and it could get a little manic, but
But does that make sense to you? I mean, like what gives you that, and what makes you feel like I need to leave a legacy? What is it that you would want to leave?
So for me, Natalie, this is my second career, right? Because my first career was my military career, which I did 24 years in the Air Force.
Amazing.
Several different positions that I held over those 24 years, deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, like tons of different things. And I think the legacy that I leave for my military career is all of the folks that I impacted in a positive way.
For sure.
All of the folks that I mentored, all of the folks that mentored me, right? So I believe strongly that my legacy in terms of my military career is all the lives that I touched. One of the things I did as part of my service in the military is I was an Air Force recruiter.
Yeah.
So, you can, not you in general, but like sometimes
I gotcha.
Folks, you think military, or you think like a recruiter, you think it's like the guy or girl who's getting you on the bus. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit deeper than that, right? Because the folks who go on to serve the nation in the capacity of service, in terms of legacy, the lives that you touch, the lives that you impact through your mentorship, through your leadership, and whatever it is that they go on to do, right? Whatever the positive accomplishments that they have, I feel like that's where my legacy lies.
Gotcha.
Now, fast forward, current day, starting a production company, Spark.N.Stride, starting a podcast, going into documentaries and short film. My legacy here, I hope to ultimately, again, like we said before, lead the way for the next generation.
Absolutely.
Show them and assist and mentor and give folks a positive space to learn and move forward. Mm-hmm. Along with that, it's what I do for my daughter. I try my best to lead by example, and I want my daughter to grow up knowing that there's endless opportunity for whatever it is that she wants to accomplish, right?
Definitely. Because
she's seen her father do it, mm-hmm. right? Her father did it. Yeah. And my hope is that she surpasses me. That's what we all want from our kids, right? For them to surpass. And ultimately my daughter was asking me today, she's like, what do you want me to do when I grow up? And I said, baby, I just want you to be happy. Mm-hmm. That's it. Whatever it is you do in life, I just want you to be happy. But Natalie, what you were saying before was that in terms of like mental health, you were piecing together like mental health and music, right? Yeah. And I think that I feel strongly that music is one of those things that is universal. It just makes you feel a certain way, right?
100%.
So I'm going to share this with you. Mm-hmm. There's very little that I'll cry about. And it could be from my childhood trauma, past trauma, military deployments. It could be from a bunch of different things, right? But it's very hard for me, call it like emotionally disconnected, but there's three things that get me sentimental. Mm-hmm. And it's family, innocent women and children, and elderly men crying. For some reason, if I see an elderly man like telling a story or something, or like a military documentary, and someone's like reliving like a battle or something like that, and they get emotionally teared up, like for some reason, mm-hmm. that just breaks me. Like I just lose it, right? Yeah. I do want to tell you something. Yeah. So I went to a podcast convention last week, and one of the things through networking that I heard was to transition yourself into this new space that you want to be in, by getting rid of the things that are taking up space that are not in this season.
Stop. I was listening to a podcast this morning on something similar to that, like how to declutter your space, to literally declutter your mind and make room for new I don't even know how to explain it, but what you just said, it kind of just hit home with me from what I was listening to today. Oh my God, please keep going. I have to know where we're going.
So I'm cleaning out my closet. I'm actually preparing for us to have this conversation. So I'm decluttering. Mm-hmm. I'm decluttering, moving things around and so forth, right? So I want to share something with you.
Yeah. That was so cute. It's amazing how like it's life right before your eyes.
Yeah.
With your loved one, your partner, and creating this family too now, and like you're just expanding and it continues and life continues, and you have that time to be with your partner again, and it's like it's just a full circle moment in a way. But it's so heartfelt and it's so like, oh my God, I don't even know what to say right now. It's like, I mean, I could only imagine like how you're feeling and how this is inspiring for you, but also just so like deeply heartfelt, because it's like it's a family empowered and just like love empowered and all that stuff. I'm still in the beginning stages. I mean, but it's not a day goes by where me and my husband talk about having kids and stuff soon, and it's that same thought process. Like, okay, so this is going to happen. And then before I know it, they're going to be going to college. And then before I know it, they're going to be having their own kids. And then before I know it, I'm getting to know my husband again. And it's just this whole thing. It's crazy.
It's wild. And that's music.
Mind-blowing.
That's the beauty of music.
Yes.
It's such a healing thing.
It's a feeling. It's much like the process of life. Music is not, it's not tangible in the aspect of how it makes you feel. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, sure, it could be tangible with the vinyl record or a CD or X, Y, and Z, but it's that feeling, that experience it gives you. Whereas I think a lot of like, where does music, what category can music fall into outside of experience? You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
Sure, it could be a hobby. It could be this. It's not, though. It's really, really not. It's the best category to put it in is life experience, if you ask me, if that makes sense.
So Natalie, like, I'm literally like cleaning out a closet and this song comes on and I just lose it.
Oh,
I lose it. And I go upstairs and, you know, my wife she's not, you know, she's a tough cookie. And she's kind of like, what's wrong with you? Like, what happened? Who died?
Did you walk up to her and you're like, can you just hug me?
Yeah, exactly. Because they know me to not, like, that doesn't, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm really glad we were able to share that. Like, I
love that thank you for sharing that with me. Are you kidding me? It's these experiences and these moments that like I really, really value. And it's these kind of people that cross our paths that you really connect with and really have that chemistry and experience with, that really makes it takes life on a different path, and sometimes for the better. I like to think for the most part for the better. Yeah, dude. Like, I think. I don't know. What do you think?
Dude, like, let me bring my heart rate down a little bit. Gotcha. I think though, Natalie, I think if I could share anything with you or let anything resonate with you after today, is that I think it's important for you to understand that you have that power. You have that power.
Now you're going to make me cry. Please don't do that to me.
I'm sorry, dude.
No, you're good. Thank you, dude. Though.
Like,
I appreciate that.
You have a talent, you have a voice, and you have this natural thing that you can affect people in that way.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? That. So we're not ending the podcast. I was just
I appreciate. I hope we're not ending the podcast. Like, thank you so much.
And we're back.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Eyes are dry.
Eyes are dry. So is my mouth.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Cheers, Natalie.
Cheers.
Natalie, what would you say is like, what do you feel is your greatest accomplishment thus far in your career?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think my biggest accomplishment so far was this last year? last year, 2022, I played at PNC Bank Art Center and opened up for George Thorogood and Sammy Hagar.
I saw that in your bio.
Yes.
Dude, that's awesome. Now
it was amazing for sure.
There is I don't know if it's an EP or anything, but there's like a live, right? Or was that Asbury Park live?
Yeah, so
that's something different.
That's something I wish we had gotten it live, but it was such a last minute gig.
Wow.
But it was a great experience. I think it was very unreal at first. And then it became very, very real. But that's what made it just feel so successful. It was like, wow, I could now say that I had done this. And the experience was effortless. It didn't feel like I plan a lot of shows and a lot of like my EP release shows, or sometimes I've done like theme release shows, and I've literally played like several different hats throughout the night where it could get really, really overwhelming. But that's also what I like about it. This show was just show up, open for these guys. They're very iconic, legendary artists. And I got to meet Sammy Hagar. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet George Thorogood. But Sammy Hagar was amazing. We had some of his tequila.
Wow. Okay, good.
And it was an awesome experience. And I think because it was so impulsive and very last minute, it made it that much more exciting. It was just me and my guitar player, Matt Fernicola.
Okay.
And I remember graduating high school and having my high school celebration at PNC Bank Art Center. I graduated Old Bridge High School, so we graduated with a big number of students. And that was the last time I was physically on the PNC Art Center stage. So being on the stage again, and this time like seeing me like on this big screen on both sides and just hearing my voice echoing throughout like the venue, it was amazing. And then even Sammy standing guard, like just watching during our sound check, it was just an amazing. Wow. I can't even begin to explain. But I hope to have more experiences like that. I think that's one of the things when I was a kid, I always said like, I want to take on the big stages. I hope maybe like Natalie Farrell will take on MSG one day, or,
I can't
just
wait.
Yeah. Like stuff like that. Yeah. It's just, and I love the performance aspects because I get to create and do what I want with the performance. I can make it as theatrical as I want to and as animated as I want to. And I think that's also why it was just as much of a successful experience with PNC Art Center, because it gave me the mindset to really look at a stage that big and go, what can I do with this? And now it's almost like I'm planning for when I do get back on a big stage.
Yeah.
So that's the empowering, accomplished moment I think I've had. But what about you?
Wow. Before I answer your question, just real quick before I lose my train of thought, because I am going to answer your question.
I gotcha.
How many times do you think you passed the PNC prior to that? How many times you think, because we pass it all the time.
Like drove by?
Yes.
Oh my God. Way too many.
Way too many, right?
Way too many times, to the point that where it's like well over 60, 70, maybe even 100.
Let's just say 100.
Yeah.
Let's go with 100.
Yeah. I could confidently say that for sure.
You've been up and down on that parkway, the Garden State Parkway.
Yep.
Passing that PNC.
All the time.
Now you pass it and you're like, dude, I did that.
Yes.
It's got to be a different feeling.
It's a different feeling.
Right.
Every single time. I mean, it's one of those things where you'll never look at the venue the same. It's almost like when you work at a place, you're like, I can't look at it the same way anymore because I worked there. But this is like a good way of saying, some jobs you're like, meh, it's all right. Yeah. This in particular, it felt like that. I was like, I'll never look at it the same way. Even like the Garden State Parkway like sign for it and how they always show like what's coming up at the PNC Art Center. I just always look at it as like, I played there. I did that. And it was an awesome experience. And I know what backstage looks like. I know these people that like were very welcoming, and it was just awesome. I had my own trailer, which like at the time I was like, that's a big deal for me. Now it's like, all right. I mean, it's a trailer. You'll live. But
it's
those
amazing
moments,
though, right?
yeah,
it's amazing.
Those little moments, it makes you feel a little more accomplished, you know?
I think for me, one of my biggest accomplishments in terms of the podcast,
yes,
right, is being recognized which was wild.
Amazing.
At the airport. Because I'm wearing like my Spark.N.Stride t-shirt. I'm like, if I'm not going to wear my merch, who's going to wear it?
Of
right.
course.
So I'm wearing it.
Smart
and
move.
Somebody came to me and was like, are you Mach from Spark.N.Stride? I'm like, took my headphones off. I'm like, I'm sorry? They're like, are you Mach? I'm like, yeah. They're like, dude, your episode with, which one was it? I forgot exactly which one it was, but something regarding like wellness and like anxiety. Oh man, I can't think of which one exactly was. But in any case, this guy's like, dude, that was amazing.
Nice.
It really hit home for me.
Of course.
Thank you. Please keep going. I'm like, wow, this is wild.
Those moments you like. Oh,
I don't have 1,000 followers on Instagram, but this guy recognized me. Like, that's wild. Yeah.
No, but that makes it still impactful. Especially for what you're continuing to create, and it's showing, it's influencing people, and you don't even know it yet, or you're just starting to figure it out now.
Yeah, and I just love it. I love it because
should, of course,
I'm enjoying myself, and I think it's important. You know what I mean? So, sure. Natalie, what's the first concert you ever went to?
Oh my God! First concert I ever went to, Bamboozle, 2007. I should not have been there. I was 13 years old.
What stands out about it? Like, what do you remember the most about it?
My favorite band, Paramore, headlined.
Let's get into it.
I mean,
Paramore, by the way, is an amazing band.
Oh my God.
Amazing band.
Don't even get me started. Overall, the band they've been together for so long. Their dynamic, their chemistry, it really shows in their music, in their performances. I've seen them like twice in the last year, and seeing them so early on at the highlight or like the climax of their career early on, and she was maybe only 17, 18 at the time. It was really empowering for me as a 13-year-old to see this powerhouse small girl jumping around and really commanding the stage and really getting the crowd to be so like into it. And I remember the crowd, there must have been about like 15,000 people in the crowd. It was intense. And I had never been to a music festival in my life. I actually lost my friend, and I was dead in the middle of the crowd. I met two random people who were super nice. They were like, we'll barricade you, we'll put our arms up, and we'll, because they were doing the surf crowd waves, which I never experienced at that time.
Wow.
And each time like somebody would go on top, you'd fall over, and they said, when you're ready and you're done, we'll get you out.
Okay.
And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, I don't know how they're going to get me out. And at that moment, I remember we got knocked over and I got crushed. It was to the point where I was feeling anxiety, and I was like, I need to get out of here. And I said, I'm done. And they immediately lifted me up. Like I felt like I was being elevated off the ground. And before I knew it, I just felt hands like pushing me forward towards the stage. And that was the first moment I like laid eyes on like Kelly Williams and the rest of the band. And I just like the music grew louder because now like you're up top and you're floating closer to the music. And it was just like watching her rock out and jump around and dance, and like it was just like an experience I was like experiencing through her that I knew I wanted right away, and I knew she was going to impact me, and so was the rest of the band.
Wow.
And that was my first ever concert. I went home definitely crying. I lost hair extensions. I was this emo MySpace girl back then, and I'm surprised I didn't lose my Vans. And overall, it was the experience was still worth it. It was definitely worth it. Because I found my most influential band through that show. I mean, I've definitely heard of them prior, but that was like, I got to see them and see it happen. And I crowd surfed.
Yeah.
So that's
I've never crowd surfed before.
Yeah, I think I maybe crowd surfed one other time. That's it.
But this one particularly, first one, memorable.
Yes,
clearly.
Very memorable, and it was just amazing. I even remember when the security guard put me down, and they normally like rush you away from like the stage and stuff like that. I just stood there and I just like looked And I was like, this is wow. And I think they didn't say anything to me because like I was like 85 pounds soaking wet, 13-year-old girl. Like exactly. I was just like, oh, this is so amazing. And I think after like a minute or so, I was like, you got to get out of here. I was like, okay. And then I was done. I was like, I don't need to go back and see the rest of the show. I had like my fix. I got my experience and I went looking for my friend after that. That turned into a whole different experience throughout the rest of the night. But I got what I came there for. So.
No, 100%. That's awesome, dude.
Yes, of course.
That's awesome. My first concert that I actually paid a ticket for and actually went, it was the Hard Knock Life tour at the Coliseum.
You're kidding.
Yeah, it was DMX, Jay-Z, The Lox, I want to say Busta Rhymes. I mean, I was in my element.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, like this is amazing.
Oh my God. Yeah. What did that feel like for you?
It was incredible. And let me just tell you something. So at the time, you know, Jay-Z, DMX, these guys they're still my idols to this day.
Of course.
But the performance that DMX gave, I mean, he had you amped up. No pun intended for the shirt. Shout out to Amp.
I love it.
Yeah. Shout out to Amp Fitness. But it was, you were amped up. You were, then he had you crying because he was like reading passages out of the Bible. Wow. It was just, you went through like an emotional roller coaster. It was incredible. It was definitely an era. Like that era of hip hop for me was just absolutely amazing. And for me to be able to, like, I bought my ticket. Like I went, amazing. You know, it was my, you know, first concert.
Do you still have the ticket?
I wish I did.
Same.
I do have all of the magazines, all of the XXLs and Source magazines that I purchased in that era. I still have those.
Awesome.
And I still have all of the cassette tapes from the music that I purchased back in that era. But something just came to my mind. Mm-hmm. We've been going back and forth. This has been just absolutely amazing. I wish the people listening or watching can feel the energy in this room right now. Oh, because it's pure and it's ours.
Yes,
right? It's our energy, right?
Absolutely.
And we're going to share it with the folks that are watching and listening, right?
That's the best way to do it.
But Natalie, throughout your journey, throughout your musical journey, from staring in the mirror, the closet, mirrored, you know, doors, dancing, watching Selena, to where you are now, where do you think your resiliency was challenged the most?
Ooh. Wow. I feel like I have an idea, but I'm like taking it in right now.
The reason why I'm asking is because resiliency means so much. It's absorbed differently for different people. It means different things, right? So
definitely.
I'm just curious.
No, I get it, definitely.
I think and I don't mean to cut you off. I just think that in this conversation that we're having, it's very easy. It's so fluid, the conversation, that it can appear that your journey has just been very easy. Yeah. And that your resiliency has not been tested.
I gotcha.
And I just cannot believe that to be so.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Right?
Definitely. I think it's been tested a number of times for sure. I think starting with from the age of 13 to 14, I was definitely heavily bullied growing up. This is also something I've never really talked about until now, so I'm still trying to take it all in. But yeah, I was heavily bullied on how I looked, how I spoke. I had my house egged. I had people jump me. Like it was an experience enough to, at the moment, want to crawl back into your shell and never want to come out. But I think something inside of me said, I need to prove all these people wrong. I need to prove that I am better than what they're putting me out to be, and I am stronger, and I can dominate in my own powerful way, and I'm more than capable, I'm more than deserving, and I'm more than worthy in comparison to them. And I think that's what kick-started everything for me to push with music. I think I pushed even academically. I like, it was just all around, like, I need to prove something to somebody. And once I did, it was very euphoric feeling at the moment, but then it turned into, I don't want to prove something to somebody else. I need to prove something to me. And I think I carried that with me until I was about 16, because growing up in Brooklyn, the first 6 or 7 years of my life, my dad worked in the evenings and my mom worked like weird shifts. And my grandmother pretty much took care of me and my sister and 6 or 7 other neighborhood kids. And she was a big influence of mine, and she was very influencing in the aspect of, she was the first one to manifest my music career and like who I would be when I grow up and how big of a star I would be and all this other stuff. And I spoke to her even when I moved to Jersey up until I was about 16, where unfortunately she passed away. And that was a moment for me. That was I'm no longer doing this for her. I need to start doing this for myself. And a piece of me kind of, I've always said, went with her. But now I look back at it and I'd like to say she gave me that piece back, because I think I've overcome the feeling of loss and grief. And to be able to now say I'm doing it for myself is probably the biggest and most rewarding thing I could say, which I wouldn't have said maybe even 2 years ago. I was very doubtful, and there's still moments where I still doubt myself and not as proud of myself. But I think that was the biggest moment of resilience and saying that I'm more than capable of doing anything. And then again, when I lost my voice in 2020, I think that was just the cherry on top. I think it was a brief moment of, is this over? And then it was, no, we've gone through this before. We've dealt with, falls and overcoming, and like, we're going to get through this again. Hence, I was discharged in 4 months instead of 6, and I pushed through to record a song by the end of the year, and I was ready to be back to performing in less than 3 months of being discharged. So it seems easy, or it seemed that way, but there's definitely, there's things behind closed doors that I'm learning to be more open about, especially as an artist and a musician who wants to be more outspoken. I think I'm just finally starting to break that wall. And I'm still trying to be okay with it. I think I've broken the wall and I'm still adjusting to being okay with it, but the wall is down. So that's step one of resilience, if you ask me.
Wow. Natalie, thank you for sharing that. That was powerful. And I think there's a young girl out there somewhere that's going to see that on a reel or on YouTube. It's going to resonate with her. And it was powerful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so open too, If you would allow me to, I would like to add on to the manifestation.
Yeah, the manifestations.
Yeah, I want to add on to that.
I love it.
So let's manifest, you and I, okay? That when you get your first Grammy, I just want to be backstage.
Of course.
And
my God.
And I would like invite to the after party.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yes,
We're gonna do it, all right?
We're manifesting all of that.
Okay.
I have no problem with that whatsoever. It would be amazing to say right now that will happen in the near future, and that we'll be experiencing that together. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to be conscious of your time, right? I'm not sure how long we've been going at this, but it's, I think you have rehearsals later today, so I just want to be mindful of that. So,
I appreciate it.
Hey, Natalie, but before we get out of here, before we wrap this up, please plug how we get you booked, your Instagram handle, anything that you want my audience and your platform. Let's combine it all together. Let's get both ecosystems together.
I love it. Yes. So you could check me out on Instagram under Natalie with 2 E's, NATALIE _Farrell, FARRELL. You could find me on Facebook under Natalie Farrell Music. Same thing on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, pretty much any mainstream platform. And if you're interested in booking me at your venue, you could book me by sending an email to nataliefarrellmusic@gmail.com.
Thank you so much. Again, Natalie, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so open with your story, your journey, your resiliency. It was amazing. Thank you.
You as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'll be backstage when you get your first Grammy.
I love it. I look forward to it.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll have some red wine in the back.
Cheers to that.
Salud.
Stay spark.
Chequea esto, mira un sí. Heavy duty.
Es smart.